Hello, everyone, and we're here today again for our Ascension forecast for the week. So I hope you're all doing well. We're probably coming out of the energy now and starting to come into almost like a new beginnings energy. So grab yourself a cup of tea, and today we're going to talk a bit more about the soul expression, and I'll explain in a moment. So grab a journal and a pen. That will help make some notes. And make this 30 minutes a special time for you every week to contemplate life, contemplate your dreams and goals and your soul's expression and how you might want to create some new habits and behaviors to help you with that. So I'm just going to set up the YouTube so I can actually see some comments, which I think is working there. So that's cool. And I just realized I need to open the chat on there for the people that are joining me on Zoom. So hello, everyone. Okay, so this week's a bit different to all the other weeks that we've done. There's normally three of us. There's three different voices giving three different angles on the same kind of issues. And Alicia and Ava will be doing some of their own work and joining me at the beginning of every month. And that way they can give more specific information. We find 30 minutes isn't long enough, but we want to give you in bite-sized access. So just to separate what we do out, I'm focused on soul vision. I help people connect to their soul vision. And I also help them connect to the value of their innate frequency and their creative energy and what they're here to deliver. So I'm Trudy and I'm White Star Soul Guidance. And today's session regarding the energy forecast is going to be more focused on soul expression. So if that sounds interesting to you, then come and join me and say hello in the chat. It'd be good to see what you're all doing. So normally at this point, we ask for you guys to share your soul vision in the comments and in the chat. But I think right now, after the equinox energies, you might be thinking things have changed and you don't even know what your soul vision is anymore. So rather than doing that, how about you just put into the comments if you've noticed a change since the equinox? Have you felt like your mission, your purpose has kind of changed a bit more and you're getting new insights? So if you just want to type into the comments if that's true for you, you can just say yes, and then I can come back and check those. Whether you're watching this on replay or live, then please put comments in because I do come back and read them. So today's energy reading is, and I just wanted to read this out. This is the perfect time to move forward with your projects and goals if you're soul aligned. I feel the energy right now is very much stuck if it's not meant to be, and flowing if it's meant to be. And the soul lesson this month is valuing your creativity. And that kind of relates to what you choose to do every day, like what projects you choose to take on, what people you choose to mix with. They all are external representation of how much you value yourself, your unique frequency and your creativity. And the challenge this month is that we haven't really spent much time thinking about stuff like that. So we might not even have an understanding of what our soul vision is or what our creative process is. And the strength that we have is that it is already inside us. And I've said this before when I'm taking classes, is that when we go seeking a soul vision, we're not building it from scratch, we're unveiling it. We're taking off layers of cover that we put over it, which if you think about it, that makes it a lot easier to understand than if you had to start with, well, what's the first brick I need to lay? So I wanted to share some experiences in some of the coaching I had this week. A couple of people, after we'd done some work on their soul vision, said to me, it doesn't feel any different. And I thought that was quite illuminating because it shouldn't feel any different because it's already inside you. And how I then wondered how maybe people, when they're working on their soul purpose and soul vision, I prefer soul vision, but I'll talk about soul purpose just for you to understand that concept. But I think a lot of people, when they speak about their soul vision, because it's not outside of them, they're not recognizing that energy that's already inside them. And therefore, they're not acting on it because they don't think they've changed. They don't think what they're doing has changed, if that makes sense. So let's see. So yes, I've got some messages here coming through on Zoom saying, yes, messages are getting more complex. And another one saying, not change, but making more progress on it. Yeah, there's been a lot more downloads and messages coming through if you know how to do it. but then I know both of you ladies are soul aligned, so I know you're going to have the easier end of the stick compared with others. So going back to the kind of lesson of valuing your creativity. When we come to our soul vision work, for me, it's not a job title, it's not a activity, it's a behavior and a habit in the way that we achieve things in life. So your soul vision could be something simple like becoming a conscious parent. It could be something like taking in 5D skills or intuitive skills into the corporate world. And I'm on LinkedIn these days, and I'm seeing so many more LinkedIn business people talking about intuition and yoga and meditation and the value of all of this kind of blended into our work time and our work day. So it's not a job. The idea being that when you find your unique frequency and what you're good at, it will transfer to any role you play. And that role could be as simple as just a space holder, being able to create a certain frequency and energy in such a way that everybody around you feels it, and it enables and facilitates other people to do something. So this is quite a soft skill. So when I talk about vision, you guys might be thinking, oh, I'm not a leader, or I'm not here to do anything grand. None of that matters. You are here because you're part of the puzzle, and you're part of a unique frequency that needs to be in place for the whole divine plan to work. And it's connecting to that when I talk about soul vision. The reason I use soul vision, not soul purpose or soul mission, is because if you've been following these forecasts over the last few weeks, we spoke about how the old chapter, well, it wasn't even a chapter, the book closed. The book completely closed and gave a complete new one to start writing from scratch. And I felt like our soul purpose and mission were part of the old paradigm. And if you sense into your heart, I keep encouraging people to do this, sense into your heart, put your hand on your heart and sense into your heart, and just feel into the words soul purpose and soul mission. And feel what that feels like deep within your heart, which is your soul's expression coming through your heart. And then try soul vision and see what the difference is. Now, hopefully what you're starting to sense is a kind of purpose and mission set feeling a little bit either fixed or rigid, whereas soul vision is more expansive, like it's infinite possibilities. It's an opportunity to be something that's not been predefined or preordained. So let me know how you felt with the soul purpose and the soul mission. And let me know how that kind of fits in with what you've been noticing since equinox. So now that we understand what soul vision is, and we understand that it's not a job title, then the thing that you're probably looking for as your vision will be something like, it might have been what you wanted to be as a child. It might have been what people tell you is like, when I'm hanging out with you, then this is how I feel. It might be a particular set of problems that you've met, overcome, and now are able to guide other people through. These are all clues to your vision. And you can see, again, these are not like what qualifications you have or what jobs you've done. And often I find when I speak to people, they'll say, yeah, especially like starseeds and multidimensional people, they say, yeah, I did a bit of this, then I switched to something completely different and did that. And straight away, I could see the link between them, because that switch over isn't a completely different switch. That they were two streams of consciousness education that you needed to experience in order to be able to pull them together into one. So if you find yourself having like two jobs or two sides, doing two different things, maybe your work and your hobby, your soul vision might be to bring those together and to work out a way, a new way, a quirky way, an out of the box way to pull those things into a new kind of offering that's going to enhance humanity. So one of the things on my soul vision that I was shown a long time ago, and I didn't understand it at the time, was that I was here to wake up the shamans. Now, given that we have shamans already, that was very confusing. I didn't quite understand why I was shown that. And I did hunt out a few shamans. I became a bit of a stalker. I started trying to find as many shamans to go, why do I need to wake shamans up? But I think it came more apparent to me recently is that my background is computing. I didn't plan on being a healer or even anything to do with the spiritual world as a job or as a work, but people would tell me that they could see that in me. And I didn't necessarily go and do loads of courses on it or read lots of books on it. It was kind of like they appeared in a timely fashion. Now, these are all kind of the clues of your great vision. This is how the information is dropped in. It's very subtle and very, very bits, like little tiny bits that make up only when you've got pieces that you can start putting them together. And the reason I say that is I feel that the shamans I'm meant to wake up are like that. They've probably been in normal jobs. They've probably have a natural ability for this stuff, but have never resonated with the training or wanting to be a healer. Because part of what I want to see is this skill being woken up in us and not used as a job where everyone then says, right, I've got these skills, I'm going to become a healer. What I want to see is I want them to take these skills into the work they do already. So maybe you're an accountant with spiritual skills. Maybe you'll become a finance banker with spiritual skills, a musician with spiritual skills. So I want to see that kind of crossover where that sensitive, deep thinking, out of the box awareness of something bigger than ourselves can be integrated into our everyday. And that's, I think, are the people that I'm here to wake up. So if that sounds like you, then every Monday I'll be having a conversation on topics that I'm hoping will be interesting to you. But you can always put in the comments if there's any questions, if you don't understand anything or want any topics that you want me to speak about, and then just add them into the comments as well. So now you know I work on soul vision and value, and that I'm here to awaken some people who are not already in that space. And I think also if I am attracting healers, then the healers I'm attracting are those who are ready to switch from the level they're working at now into a more quantum 5D way of working. And that's a much more etheric style of work, not necessarily any of the structures that we've lived with up until now. They'll be creating new blends, new modalities, new mixes, new ways of delivering healing, and in a much more inclusive way for everyone, if that makes sense. So does that sound like any of you guys listening now? Put a comment into the chats and let me know if that sounds like you. I'm just going to go on to check the comments quickly. I think as well that a lot of people get scared by the word leader, but leader just simply means that you're thinking out of the box, doing something different. You're not following the trends, you're not following the society rules or what you've been told things should be like. A leader is just somebody who's willing to step on the path on their own. And sometimes they'll do it with others alongside them because they'll lead by example. Sometimes they will become a guide and sort of step out a little bit to the front. But that role moves, you know, we're always learning from each other. So, and that's why I kind of wanted to do these sessions on Monday, was I think there's many of you out there who might not class yourself as healers. And I think I saw some comments last week or the week before from someone who shared some amazing insights, but I couldn't tell if they were doing spiritual work at all, but they shared some really amazing insights into how they sensed what was going on energetically. And I think a lot of us have that ability, and that's what I kind of want to waken up as the shaman within. I want to wake that up. So why were the shamans sleeping? I think the reason they were sleeping was they were waiting for this moment. It was almost like they didn't get involved in anything spiritual up till now, or at least didn't get into the mainstream spiritual aspects because they were here to birth something different. And if they'd got into that path, they might have already fallen into the structures and the formats that already existed. Whereas this way, if you wake up now, you might come up with new ways and new ways of seeing things. And I find that happens to me a lot when I'm looking at the energy downloads I'm getting. I'm seeing them with different eyes. I'm seeing with a different perspective from what I've seen before. And I generally feel that 90% of spiritual teachings is more or less accurate, and then the last 10% isn't. And I've been digging into that last 10%. And asking like, well, what if that wasn't true? What if this was different? What would we create? So that gives you an idea of like who you are and how you're meant to waken up at this point if it resonates. So now think of that as your creativity, because that's what we're waking up, is a new intuitive, creative way of being. And that kind of then fits in with our soul goals this week. So we know that it's the perfect time to move forward on your projects and goals. And I added, if soul aligned. So on the goal today, do you actually know, or do you actually understand your creative process? And do you value it? Now, most of the time we decide the value of our creative process by the thing that comes out the other end. So if you're a musician, you might decide the value is on the quality of the record you produce. If you're an artist, by the quality of the art or the saleability even of the art that comes out the other side. But what about all the other kind of jobs and the other soft skills that we have? We don't often give credit to ourselves for the, like even having an idea to do something. You know, if you're a sort of person that has ideas popping up in your head all the time, then you'll find that you assume everybody else does the same. I used to think that my downloads, I used to think were just intuitive, like thoughts. I thought they were just clever ideas that I just had while I was thinking. I didn't think of them as being important. And I had quite a few of them that I regret not acting on because they would have been reasonably big projects making quite a big difference. But I just didn't value it enough to understand that's what was happening. So the weakness, as I said, is that you don't know what you're here to do or how you're here to do it, or even valuing your power. So again, if you can type into the comments, what do you think your creative process is? I'd love to see what you enter as the comments for that. I'm just checking in with everyone. I'll give you a second to think about that. And as you're thinking about this problem of creating value out of who you are, then I'm going to give you some tips that might help you think about things a bit differently. So that we can start with something simple like, how do you create space for your creativity? So do you find that you're inspired by nature? Are you inspired by music? Do you tend to get your ideas based off community conversations, speaking to others, or TV adverts that pop up at the right time? So how do you get your creative space? And when you start thinking about that, hopefully it's unique to each person because we all work differently. And then what do you need as ingredients so that you can become focused? And where, like, how do you get those insights flowing? What process do you go through to connect to that inspiration and that flow? So on the comments here, I've got, I get great ideas like images or sounds in my mind, but I don't always act on them. And Jenny's saying nature and meditation. So meditation is one of the great tools when it's done proactively rather than just quietening the mind. If you take soul journeys through meditative states, then you can get access to your creative energies that way. So now that we know how you make your space, and now we're starting to ask about how do you focus on getting inspiration and getting that like focus on one thing. So, you know, initially when you're in a creative space, your mind might jump around a lot and access lots of different information. But it's then like, how do you get one piece and then focus on that and start building on that? And the next step is, how do you access your ancient wisdom? Because you have probably had lots of incarnations practicing exactly for the opportunities today. And there'll be a load of information in there about your vision and what you're here to do. And your soul is trying to communicate that with you every day. And then the final tip is, how do you balance your templates, your chakras, your body templates, to align it with this perfect flow of creative energy? Now, normally this sort of energy comes in through the solar plexus. That's our kind of willpower, our drive. But I tend to find when I'm working with people also, I use the Tantien. I think I say that right. As I'm Welsh, I might not have. Dantien. And this is the point that martial artists draw on for their power of movement. And I like that energy because it's a very outward focused energy of movement and power. So I tend to make sure that everybody's Tantien is charged up with the kind of fire from the center of the earth to really bring that groundedness into the creative process. And I think generally now, I don't know about if anybody's any energy healers here, But whenever I started with Reiki, I never kind of did the traditional doing all of the individual points that we were supposed to. My work was always much piecemeal, like I'd find different points and then knit them together into architectures and pull them into like more of a weaving experience. And I kind of see chakras now have moved more like that over the last 6 months. We've noticed that the chakra systems are looking more like cosmic galaxies inside. So when you want to work on something like your leadership, it's kind of like a template of multiple points that you need to align. So think of your creativity as well. The solar plexus might have the main starting point, but it's going to be in lots of different parts of your body. And to bring that into alignment. So hopefully those are some tips, and hopefully that will give you something to focus on to help your creativity flow. So remember, the strength I said you had is you're not trying to build this from scratch. What you're actually trying to do is unveil it, to almost align your body and your soul together in such a way that not only are you getting the creative insights coming in, but you're also able to take action on them and actually birth them into this world right now. Because it's no good just having the ideas, we also need to be able to act on them. So one of the things we noticed is that with the advent of AI, it's going to get more and more difficult for us to stand out in the crowd. So artificial intelligence, you know, you've probably all heard the ChatGPT. All of that stuff now is generating art, generating poetry, generating stories. It's going to write books. It's going to have books on the shelf where we're going to have AI generated books to read. So what's the difference between that creativity that's come out of the AI versus you? Now, most of the people that are going to be this shaman needs awakening, I think are going to be sensitive, and they're also going to be a bit shy because they've been kind of playing small for so long. And because of that, they have probably been the sorts to turn their energy inwards a lot, looking at the outside world going, well, I'm not as good as that, when you probably are better, but looking at other people and comparing. And with this AI changes now, you're going to have people who are probably not very creative, but are able to use AI to generate things. And you're going to look at them and think, oh, wow, their book is amazing, even though it was generated from AI with the correct prompts. And therefore, I won't write my book. And this is where valuing that creative process is going to be like gold dust, because when you know your creative process and you can tune it and verbalize it and sell it to people, not the end product, but your process, which is your soulful expression, then that's the thing the AI is not going to have. Now, I have a background in AI, and part of my classes years ago was because it was mostly coming into automation and robotics at the time. That was the first kind of layer. And we were kind of taught how to communicate with the staff of companies that would be losing their jobs because of this. Well, now, many years later, it's starting to happen to the creative folks. Those were creative jobs that thought maybe they'd never be impacted by AI are going to notice they are impacted. And we're seeing companies are already choosing AI over people for some of this work. And don't get me wrong, I think this AI is great if it's used in the right way. I found it's teaching me a different way to speak. It's allowing me to understand where my language is playing small and how to make it bigger, because AI doesn't care if it brags. So it's quite interesting to see what it says about you versus what you say about yourself. That's always a good one to play. But if you don't value your creative process in that and cannot express that to somebody who's listening, so like AI book, your book, or AI art, your art, if you can't express the energetic difference between that and the soft skills that you have that make a more feeling product, then it's going to be difficult for the person the other side to receive it. And it's quite interesting, you know, we always assume other people should see our value, that other people should recognize who we are. We're all different, we all operate differently. And I think that should turn into, it's our job to teach others all the wonderful ways that we can be creative, all the magnificent tools that we use that we didn't even realize we had, just to show the diversity of how we create. Because it's probably one of the still mystic arts is how we create and how magnificent film script gets created, how that book that just knocks everybody's socks off gets created. You know, where do those thoughts come from? And that's the creative process itself. So in the future of AI, I think valuing our creative process is going to be the big skill to learn, and learning how to express that and tell others and blow our own trumpets, but in a way that is teaching others as well, is going to be what we need to do as the future. So how do you guys feel about AI and artificial intelligence? How is that impacting your work at the moment? Have you noticed this impacting? Are you using it for anything? Are you finding value from it? Because one of the things, if you think about how many times have we been given crystals, or that we've been sensitive to EMF, to the electromagnetic frequencies of computers, TVs, to electrical cables, to Wi-Fi. That's what AI uses as its source energy to create. And then think about spending a whole day in a computer room surrounded by computers. How do you feel? Then sitting in a room full of inspired people who are creative. And then how do you feel? Being stuck indoors with artificial lights versus being outdoors with nature. How do you feel? That is a creative frequency in itself. And that's what goes into anything you create. Like I said, it's not the end product, it's the way you create it. So if that resonates with you, I'd love to hear your comments. And we're coming up to the end of time now, so I'll just wait a few minutes to see if there's any questions and if that's invoked any thoughts. So each week I'm going to be having this kind of conversation and asking lots of questions to try and expand your consciousness and finding ways to value who you are and help more of your soul essence, your multidimensional soul essence, return to your body. So if this is really interesting to you, then please give me a thumbs up and like the videos and share, because I really am seeking these sleeping shamans. So I'd love for this to be shared. And one of the ways that I'm hoping to discover some of these sleeping shamans, I found one already, so I'm kind of excited. Well, he wasn't so much sleeping, but I've definitely found a like-minded soul, is to ask people to join us after this 30 minutes talk. I do a mastermind, and the whole point of the mastermind is kind of like a brainstorming to see what everybody's thinking, what challenges they're experiencing, and just a sharing to create that creative space, basically to help be the social proof to each other and build up that knowledge of what I've seen, what you've seen, and how they fit together. So that's by invite only. And I hope you guys have some amazing insights this week, because since the equinox, it got a bit tight for a while and a bit intense, and lots of old stuff was coming up, which I felt was coming up to almost remind you of the value. So whether it was good or bad memories that were coming up, it was very much about, you did this, you achieved this, but you've never really seen the value that you did in that. You're too focused on the issues that you saw instead. And that kind of really leads in nicely to the full moon, because we're coming up to a Libra full moon, which is very much about weighing the scales, of looking at everything and checking if it really is in alignment with our soul right now, and throwing out what isn't to make room for what is, and then expanding on the things that are good. Sort of, it's time now to stop focusing on the problem, because if we focus on the problem, all you're doing is sending energy to that problem. It's time now to focus on solutions. So don't look what problems you're fixing as your vision. It's what vision are you building? And I'll leave you with that, and hopefully we'll see you all next Monday, and I'll come back and read all the comments. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.